Oi, alright, how's it going? I'm Grant, this is DoodleReview, out here working to give you non-stop daily music content. This week we got new stuff from Nas, Miya Folick, P-Money and Squid. I've literally just returned from a week travelling around Ireland and have now almost completely replaced my blood with Guinness. What a country. Had such a blast, and music was a big part of it, whether it be regulars at the bar just breaking into song at the drop of a hat just for each other, or trad bands in pubs with a guitar and a fiddle, or even a full-scale cover band we danced to until 3 in the morning in Killarney. Shout out to Joe 90 for that one. This might make absolutely no sense if you're not from the UK, but I'm always struck on these trips by how crushingly English I am. You realise that we English, on the whole, are so painfully uptight and guarded. Like, unless you're blind drunk, if you sing to yourself at a bar, you're seen either as a complete twat or just a nutter, which I guess makes us what we are, but it's a pretty sad trait to have. You also realise when you visit another country with so many traditions, values and so much culture, how cultureless we really are. And anything you think is great, I can guarantee we probably took from some other people or nation we spent hundreds of years trying to oppress. Football is maybe the closest thing we have, and even that has a pretty nasty tribal streak running through it. So yeah, anyway, I had a great time. I love Ireland. Shout out Cork, shout out Killarney, shout out Dublin. Seeing these places once again, expanding my perspective on life, and I got a whole lot of great music too as well. But enough of that shite, let's get into it. Magic 2 is now the 5th collaboration between New York rap legend Nas and producer extraordinaire Hit Boy, and while the Magic title would indicate a quicker, like, odds and ends release compared to the more considered King's Disease albums, this record is a surprise stunner and now another in a long line of great releases from the duo. Office Hours is my favourite in the set that hits early on. It has a great beat with a rough drums and vocal samples, but most notably includes a feature from Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent. His verse sounds like he's still out of breath from hanging upside down at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but is really fun nonetheless, and Nas's flow only sounds more vital against a slightly aging Jackson. The production as ever is on point, even if the palette of sounds is relatively limited. Tracks like Abracadabra and Black Magic see Hit Boy weave some really creative piano runs throughout the beats, a common theme across the entire album. One thing that Hit Boy has over a lot of producers that I've noticed is that he knows how to deliver a great outro. Even a relatively by-the-numbers track like Motion is elevated by Hit's production choices in the final third of the track, where the orchestral samples evolve into a new pattern. In fact, almost every beat here has a distinct final section, which not only makes for a more interesting listen, it also allows Nas to switch things up for a more engaging song overall. If I was to critique anything, it would just be that occasionally Nas feels like he doesn't have a lot to say, or delivers a great flow in one verse but doesn't seem to follow it up in the second. Just like the second half of Irvin Magic Johnson, for instance. And this track also suffers with a bit of a dud of a refrain where we get an attempt to make a couplet out of Enterprising and Johnson, which is as much of a stretch as it sounds. This is a minor complaint though, because overall Nas delivers each track with the energy we've been spoiled with across the previous 4 albums at this point. I'm a sucker for a track that sees Nas reminiscing over an up-tempo major key soul sample beat, and we normally get at least one per album, and what this all really means delivers, with some nice guitar licks to underline the sentimentality on the way out. The genesis of One Mic, One Gun makes me cringe a little. Bringing 21 Savage and Nas together on a beat after 21 claimed Nas was irrelevant is cool, but also a little awkward, because it's like, well, has Savage actually changed his opinion? Was he wrong in the first place? Either way though, it's actually one of the best tracks in the set, with its summary beat providing a good background for the flows of our headliners that surprisingly complement each other quite well. Magic 2 is another killer release from this collaboration that just won't quit, and nor should it, and I really hope it doesn't. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. On her second album, Roach, Miya Folick delivers some fantastic pop songwriting, but stylistically camouflages herself against so many influences that it's hard to pin down her artistic identity. The album has some art pop leanings like Twigs or Polachek, some indie folk reminiscent of Sharon Van Etten or Angel Olsen, some more kind of alternative indie rock cuts like Japanese Breakfast or Nearly for Yanya, and there's even what could be a straight up Lana Del Rey cover tacked at the end called Ordinary. As a result, the album tries on all of these personas, but doesn't offer enough of a common thread to not just feel a bit messy. There are some great songs, whether you're looking for catchy pop cuts like Get Out of My House and Drugs or People, or slightly abstract tracks like Cockroach or my personal favourite Mummy, which is an excellent meditation on Follick's parental influences. So you are going to find something here. It's just overall all over the place. And on that basis, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Money Over Everyone 4 is South London grime artist P Money's 8th major release. Call them albums or mixtapes, whatever you want. But either way, I'd say it's an absolute must for any fans of the grime genre. It's a mix of bombastic, classic sounding grime bangers, and some of them, like Bars and Dat, literally make me feel like I could be back at school, hearing it play out of someone's Sony Ericsson Walkman phone. And it's also a mix of that and some more introspective, deep and well-delivered cuts you'd expect from a more mature performer, such as the now 34-year-old rapper. And I bring up his age because I think it's the self-confidence and perspective of P Money as a now older artist that makes the album so listenable. His bars still go hard on the tracks designed to get you hyped, like a Bars and Dat or them guys, but the comfort in his own skin allows him to drop the mask and offer some tongue-in-cheek, light-hearted moments that break the self-seriousness that you could otherwise level at a lot of albums in the grime genre. This can tip over the edge in certain instances. KMT and TUT is fun at first with the spelling out of its words, but the gimmick wears thin after a few listens. But overall, on the whole, the album stays quite as a fun experience. Production wise, there are some fantastic choices and textures put forward by the many collaborators on the project. Still in particular really got my attention with elements that sound like metal being dragged over concrete. Elsewhere, So What has a beat with what sounds like a Tekken sample. Wagwan Mumsy has some cool sub-bass flourishes and pitch slides. And the vocal mixing, especially the double tracking as on the chorus of Keep Your Distance and OK, really sounds good. Sometimes songs can run a little long, even if what's there is good, like Keep Your Distance, and occasionally you'll find the vibes with some annoying repetition, but overall this is some of the most fun I've had with a rap album all year. I would give this a solid 7 out of 10. I came to Squid's latest album with a lot of trepidation. Thinking back to their debut, Bright Green Field, although it was widely critically acclaimed at the time, I just didn't see it. And listening back to that album and my review, I think even now I was a bit soft on it. My gripe at the time was that I was just a bit done with stereotypical British art punk, post-punk lyrics. But now listening to Bright Green Field, while there's certainly a talented band at the core, there are so many musical cliches that just leave me cold. Long tension-building jam sessions based around arpeggiated, plucked guitar chords with someone ranting about Big Pharma. It's just not that interesting, to me at least. But much to my surprise, I've found that Monolith is a step up in almost every conceivable way. While it very much feels like the same band with abstract and meandering arrangements, artsy lyrics and unusual instrumentation, it all just sounds so much more original and interesting. This new level for the band hit almost instantly on the opening track Swing in a Dream, which builds and builds with a vocal refrain that gets into your head and finishing with a rewarding, heavy payoff that deploys scratchy guitars, horns and charging drums. I feel echoes of Brian Eno's work with Bowie on the introduction of Siphon Song. Just one example of the sophisticated and exquisitely assembled production on Monolith. For the most part, at least, because there are a couple of head-scratching choices here, like the weird cartoon sound effects on the blades and the slightly atonal climax to the great riff in Undergrowth. On the whole, though, this is fantastic art rock and a great evolution in this band Squid's sound. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this week's reviews. Got more stuff down the line coming for you. I'm going to be dropping a Nas Hit Boy album ranking, a vinyl update, and a Blur review special. There'll be plenty more where that came from, so keep your eyes peeled.